We're going to begin this hour with that breaking news out of London, where British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has just announced his resignation.
Yeah, the Prime Minister spoke just moments ago following a dramatic 24 hours that saw more than 50 ministers and aides quit his government.
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. I regret not to have been successful in those arguments, and of course it's painful not to be able to see through so many ideas and projects myself. But as we've seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful. When the herd moves, it moves. And my friends, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable. And our brilliant and Darwinian system will produce another leader equally committed to taking this country forward through tough times.
NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobaya joins us now from London. Hey, Kelly, so this has been a few months of scandal after scandal in British politics. The last 24 hours, extremely dramatic, finally end in Johnson's resignation. Tell us some of the biggest takeaways from his speech just minutes ago.
Yeah, so just a 6-minute speech in front of 10 Downing Street. The Prime Minister came out promptly at 12:30 as promised. And he said, among other things, that the reason he fought so hard to stay on was that he said, I thought it was my job, my duty, my obligation to the voters who gave him and his party that landslide victory back in 2019. He talked about his accomplishments as he saw them in office, including seeing the country through the COVID pandemic. This country was very successful in its vaccine rollout, and also his government support for Ukraine as it battles Russia. He also said, I know people will be relieved, some people will be disappointed. He said he, for one, was sad not to be able to carry out the promises of his party and of that election nearly 3 years ago. He said he was sad to be giving up what he called the best job in the world, but he said, them's the breaks, his words. This now sets the stage for a leadership contest, an election for a new Tory leader, a new Conservative leader. That timetable will be laid out in next week, the Prime Minister said. And he said he will stay in office until a new leader is chosen, possibly as long as this fall. Savannah?
Them's the breaks. There's a headline quote if you've ever seen one. So let's talk about that next process. Some want him to step down immediately. He's not gonna. So what does happen next? How long does this process take to get a new party leader?
Well, the timetable is set by another minister who's in charge of what's called the 1922 committee. I won't delve into the details of that, but it's essentially a decision that's made by members of parliament, and they will lay out the timeline. The idea is that members of parliament, Conservative members, will vote for a candidate. They will hold a vote, and there are said to be at least half a dozen names in the ring, or at least being tossed out as possible candidates right now. Once they narrow that field down to 2, the vote will go out to Conservative Party members throughout the country. There are about 200,000 Conservative Party members right now, and they will essentially choose the next Prime Minister. So we are looking at a process that will take a number of weeks, could be early fall, before there's a new Prime Minister in place. Joe, Savannah.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much for covering this breaking news for us, and we will continue to follow the developments from Downing Street. And turning now to the latest from Highland Park this morning and the chilling confession the investigators say the suspected gunman made to them. Authorities say the man accused of killing 7 people and wounding dozens more voluntarily confessed to the shooting after he was taken into custody. They say the suspect went into detail about his actions on the 4th of July and also said that he thought about carrying out another attack in Madison, Wisconsin after fleeing the scene in Highland Park. That confession comes as the entire community rallies behind the families, mourning the loss of their loved ones, and searches for more answers into how this violence could have happened. NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns joins us now with the latest from Highland Park. Hey, Dasha, good morning. So first, what more can you tell us about this confession by the suspected gunman and that second attack police say he considered that day?
Yes, Savannah, we're learning some chilling new details about what happened here in Highland Park and what almost happened in Madison, Wisconsin. Officials say that the suspect voluntarily confessed to climbing up on a roof here in Highland Park on the 4th of July and firing into the crowd. He spent 83 rounds, Savannah, into that crowd of people. He was dressed in women's clothing. He admitted to conceal himself so he could flee the scene. And he drove his mother's car to Madison, Wisconsin, where officials say he saw another gathering of people and considered another mass shooting. He had a rifle with him that had about 60 rounds as well. He didn't end up carrying that out. And that, unlike what happened here, which authorities say was pre-planned, he planned the attack in Highland Park for weeks. What he saw in Madison, Wisconsin was sort of a chance encounter with a crowd. He ended up driving back to Illinois, where he was ultimately apprehended. And it's horrifying to think about the idea that another crowd could have experienced this, Savannah.
Absolutely. Now, Dasha, walk us through where we're at with the actions prosecutors have taken against the suspect at this point, and also what charges are likely to come.
Yeah, so far, 7 charges of attempted murder. I'm sorry, 7 charges of first-degree murder. Now, we expect many more charges to come, according to officials, including attempted murder charges for everyone who suffered a gunshot wound, and even charges for the bullets that were dispensed on that day. He is being held right now without bail, and we expect a lot more to come from prosecutors in the coming days, Savannah.
Dasha, what else are we learning about the victims? Let's talk about them who tragically lost their lives in the shooting, and how are witnesses who experienced the shooting doing today?
Yeah, Savannah, we just learned recently the identity of the 7th victim who passed away from this tragic event, Eduardo Uvaldo. He was 69 years old. It would have been his 70th birthday on Friday, and this community is grieving the loss of lives, grieving loved ones who were hurt, and trying to process all of this. Because look, Savannah, you know, when the cameras go away, when the caution tape comes down, when that street behind me where this tragic event happened is open again, the people here are going to have to deal with this tragedy for years to come, especially when you think about so many children that were at this parade. I talked to 2 young girls, 9-year-old Lily and 11-year-old Sydney, who told me that they always looked forward to coming to this parade. They were excited to get some candy, get some prizes, but this time, instead of all of that fun that they were looking forward to, their father grabbed them screaming, "Run!" They had to hide in a local business here, and they are traumatized. But they wanted to do this interview with me, Savannah, because they wanted other children to know that it's okay to be scared and it's okay to talk about it. Take a listen.
When we were walking to our friend's house, I saw like a bullet in a car with I think blood dripping down because it was red. The side of the car was red with a gun bullet. I kept waking up with stomach aches, just worrying, and I don't know what my mom said. I was sleep talking about scary stuff.
Is this the most scared you've ever been?
Probably.
Savannah, they say they don't want to go to any more parades. They are scared of loud noises. Fireworks will never be fun for these girls again. Savannah?
Oh, absolutely. And you hear their little voices and what they're talking about. It's just so heartbreaking. All right, Dasha Burns, thank you so much. Now, this morning, Brittney Griner is back in a Moscow court as the trial of the WNBA star resumes. Griner has been detained in Russia since February.
A rally was held in Phoenix yesterday calling on President Biden to act. The president also spoke with Griner's wife, pledging to work on her release. Griner's wife spoke at that rally, expressing her disappointment with the situation.
I'm frustrated that 140 days have passed since my wife has been able to speak to me, to our family, and to her friends. I'm frustrated that my wife is not going to get justice. Let's make sure this administration knows that they have our support to do whatever is necessary, and that we are not going to ever be quiet until she's home safely.
NBC News reporter Matt Bodner joins us from London, and NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett is in Washington covering the White House for us. Good morning to both of you. So, Matt, let's start with you. You know the Russian court system well. Walk us through what we can expect from Brittney Griner's hearing trial this morning, what she's facing, and help us understand the process for a trial like this in Russia.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. Well, yeah, so this is the second hearing in Brittney Griner's trial. The first one was last week. These are very long processes, especially in Russia. I think we're still probably about a month away from a verdict. But today we're expecting to hear up to 3 prosecution witnesses sharing their testimony. We are not yet sure if Griner will give any kind of testimony in court of her own today. But we do understand that the U.S. Embassy does have officials in the courtroom. And she is facing extremely serious charges. Drug charges in Russia are really no laughing matter. They treat them extremely seriously. She is specifically being charged with drug smuggling because she was picked up allegedly in Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport in a customs zone. That is a maximum sentence of 10 years. And I have to say, it is almost a virtual certainty that she will be found guilty on those charges because we have statistics. Russia has an extremely high prosecution rate. A 2018 survey found that it was above 99%. So the unfortunate fact is that if you do face charges in Russia, it is extremely unlikely that you are going to be found innocent on those charges. So it's more of a question of how long is this process going to take. I'd say we're about a month away before we hear anything in that regard.
Maura, let's bring you in here because yesterday the president spoke with Griner's wife, who we just heard from there a moment ago. What kind of support did he say his administration is going to give?
Well, Cherelle Griner, Brittney Griner's wife, has been in touch with in recent weeks National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. But this call yesterday from both President Biden and Vice President Harris came after Brittney Griner sent the president a handwritten letter in which she urged him to do anything he could to bring her home because she said she was terrified of being stuck in a Russian prison for the rest of her life. And so the White House released a statement about the call. I want to read you an excerpt from it, saying the president called Cherelle to reassure her that he is working to secure Brittney's release as soon as possible, as well as the release of Paul Whelan and other U.S. nationals who are wrongfully detained or held hostage in Russia and around the world. Now, that Paul Whelan reference is referring to another American being held in Russia for espionage. He's on a 16-year sentence, and his family has expressed concern that Brittney Griner is receiving more of a celebrity treatment, more contact with the president. And so the White House working to acknowledge that there. And we did see that Cherelle Griner posted on Instagram yesterday after the conversation with the president and vice president, saying that she will remain outspoken and concerned, as you saw in the event last night, until her wife returns home. But she said that she's hopeful and grateful for the commitment the White House is putting towards bringing her wife home.
So, Matt, this may all come down to some sort of prisoner swap. Do we know if Russia is even open to some kind of deal with the U.S. like a prisoner swap?
Well, Joe, they've denied directly this accusation, but there have been a lot of signals out of Moscow indirectly over the years that this is exactly what they're looking for. We don't even really need to look too hard for it. One of those Americans that they did take into custody, Trevor Reed, was swapped earlier this year. Of course, Paul Whelan still remains in custody, but we're always hearing from his lawyers, from other officials in Moscow, speculation that he could be swapped for one name in particular, Victor Bout, that is kind of an infamous Russian gun runner who was picked up by the U.S., and Russia's always looking for ways to get him back. We're starting to hear that name come up in the context of Griner. But just this morning, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said that the United States and Russia have a lot to talk about, a lot to work through before they can start talking about prisoner exchanges again. So you kind of get the impression that there is a political game being played here. But one thing Ryabkov did insist on was that no discussion is possible until the Russian court finishes its process with Griner. So we're going to be waiting a while before we hear anything about a potential swap, I think.
And Maura, let's talk about the flip side of this and what the Biden administration can do and is willing to do. Are we up for something like a prisoner trade? The person that Matt Bodner just referenced there, would we do that? Or is there anything that we could do with these sanctions that have been imposed on Russia because of the Ukraine war, easing them or anything like that? What are the options?
Well, on the U.S. side, it's actually very similar to what Matt just laid out. A senior administration official telling NBC that we can probably not expect a resolution until the trial plays out, which, as you heard, is expected to take several weeks, up to a month. But the U.S. Is hoping that by that time, Russian President Vladimir Putin would be ready to talk more about a negotiation. Now, NBC asked Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre just yesterday specifically about Victor Brut and whether that was an option for a prisoner swap. And the press secretary said that she would not comment on public. She does not want to negotiate in public. And so this is something that is going on behind the scenes. President Biden receives an update about Griner's status every day. And so this is, though, something we're going to have to see continue as she is on trial in Russia.
All right, Maura and Matt, thank you so much.
It's official. Former President Trump's White House counsel is expected to testify tomorrow. The House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol reached a deal to interview Pat Cipollone behind closed doors. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Raffa joins us with more on what we can expect. So, Ali, good morning to you. We know that last week the committee subpoenaed Cipollone to testify. So what can we expect now, and help us understand just how crucial is his testimony?
Good morning, Joe. Well, I think the fact that the committee has been so vocal and so public about its requests for him to come forward and testify publicly or on the record is really proof of how impactful they think Cipollone's testimony is going to be. Remember, the committee already knows what Cipollone knows because he's been voluntarily having sort of informal talks with the committee for months now, but they haven't been able to use any of that information publicly because Cipollone has been concerned about executive and attorney-client privilege concerns. Now his testimony on Friday is going to be under oath. It's going to be transcribed, recorded. This is something that the committee can finally use to fill in really the missing pieces of this puzzle for the American people. And Justice Department officials, we know because they've said so, are watching these hearings. And it's also worth noting that some of pieces of his pre-recorded testimony could very possibly be used in this next public hearing that we're expecting on Tuesday, Joe.
I mean, one of the reasons there's so much interest in Cipollone, at least publicly right now, is because of last week's public hearing where we heard that testimony from former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson. She discussed some comments that she says Cipollone made about January 6th. So remind us, what were some of the concerns that she brought up?
Yeah, we've heard Cipollone mentioned multiple times throughout really the start of these hearings. And most notably, as you mentioned, was Hutchinson's testimony, where she really described him as being a vocal opponent of what he was seeing going on in the White House before, during, and after January 6th. Take a listen to some pieces of her testimony from last week.
I saw Mr. Cipollone right before I walked out onto West Exec that morning, and Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen. In the days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or defrauding the electoral count.
So this is someone, as you heard her say, somewhat a vocal opponent of what he saw going on in the White House. We also heard Cipollone described as someone who threatened to resign based on what he was seeing, someone who defended Justice Department officials in those private meetings. We heard of in one of those hearings about former President Trump's pressure campaign on Justice Department officials. So a lot we can still learn from Cipollone, Joe.
Looking ahead, Ali, the next public hearing is set for next Tuesday. Do we know who are we going to hear from and what the focus of the hearing is going to be?
So there are reports that former Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews could be testifying in either this next hearing on Tuesday or potentially a future hearing that comes after that. But we expect the next hearing on Tuesday to really go into what was going on inside the White House and at the Capitol during the 187 minutes that it was under attack, whether there was any communication between White House officials and these far-right groups, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, names that we've heard mentioned in previous hearings. Definitely something that the committee members are expected to expand upon in this next hearing on Tuesday, Joe.
Ali Raffa, thank you so much.
Now it's time for a check on your morning news now weather.
Michelle Grossman joins us with that. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. And we are watching more summer storms today. Also some summer heat. Temperatures climbing into the triple digits in some spots. But first, starting with radar, you can see clusters of storms across the area. This is going to blossom as we go throughout this afternoon and evening hours. Lots of lightning, really dark colors. That's indicating some torrential downpours. And that will be a concern as we go throughout this Thursday. Look how much of the country is under the gun for severe storms, at least strong to severe storms. So we're looking at Missoula down to Rapid City, and then we're looking at the Carolinas as well to the southeast. Where you see this yellow coloring, that's where we're expecting the severe weather. So when we say that, we mean we could see storms producing winds of 60 miles per hour, could see some hail, also the chance of a brief tornado. That's what we'll be watching this afternoon, evening hours. Charlotte, Columbia, Nashville, Huntsville, Atlanta, you could see some of these strong storms. We're also looking at the chance for heavy rain. We're looking at torrential downpours within some of these storms. We've also had days of rain, so the ground is really wet in some spots. Dark colors here along the Carolina coast, back into the Ohio Valley, into the Midwest. Yellows, oranges, red. That's indicating where we could see 1, 2, even 3 inches of rain in some spots. So here's the setup. We have 2 frontal boundaries. We have an area of high pressure with storms kind of riding along that high. So we're going to see more rounds of soaking rain, especially in the southeast today. And the fuel for these storms is the dangerous heat. We're looking at temperatures really warm once again today. 43 million people impacted by a heat alert. We have heat advisories. That's in the orange. We have heat warnings. That's in your hot pink color. And that's because we're looking at temperatures climbing into the 100s. 104 in Tulsa, 103 in Dallas, 103 in San Angelo. That's not the only story, though. You factor in the humidity, the high humidity. It's going to feel like 109 in Little Rock. It's going to feel like 111 in Tulsa. Same story as we go throughout Friday. We're looking at Little Rock 101, feeling like 110. Back to you guys.
Oh,
humid, wet. All right,
yeah.
Got it.
That real feel in Tulsa, 111.
I know.
All right, thanks, Michelle. See you next hour.
Sure.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.